Okay, check testing 1, 2. We're about ready to start the Theology Pit here. Let's get our title. And let's do it up. Here we go. Hopefully you're not hearing that stuff.
You've fallen into the Theology Pit.
Theology Pit. You've fallen in the Theology Pit.
Well, hey everyone, welcome back to the Theology Pit. This is Theology out of Pittsburgh, and not to be confused with a bottomless pit, because you know what we say, when you fall into a bottomless pit, you die of dehydration. I'm your friendly neighborhood theologian, pastor, host of the Theology Pit, and don't forget Divergent Theology. We got a great series going on right now. This is the video edition, so if you're listening on podcast and you want to go and you want to check out the video, you can do that at our YouTube channel for the Theology Pit. And I'm going to have a couple graphs and charts and things up, so you might want to check this out, because today we're going to be talking about the whole thing with the mandate of wearing masks and the COVID-19 thing. And I know you're thinking, what does this have to do with theology? You know, and well, the reason why is because there is the scientific data that's behind it, but then there is the Christian's responsibility in how we are to interpret, understand, perceive, and how we're to deal with the way the government is mandating mask wearing and those sort of things. And so we're going to be reacting to a couple videos. Now, the first video that we're going to react to is by a man named Kyle Hill. Kyle Hill, he is a scientist who, he's like more of like a hip, cool, like Bill Nye the Science Guy, except he actually has the credentials to back it up, and he is super entertaining. He used to be on a channel called Because Science, and he would do like real, you know, scientific examinations of things and break stuff down that, you know, you care about. Like, what would it be like to have, you know, Wolverine's adamantium skeleton? Who's the most powerful, character in video games? Like, stuff like that. And he would use, you know, the scientific formulas of you know, whatever was necessary to figure out, like, how powerful people are. Like, how powerful is 11 from Stranger Things? Stuff like that. Great channel, super entertaining. He left Because Science, but they still have a lot of his stuff, and they'll still replay it. Highly encourage you to watch that stuff, especially if you like superhero stuff and just kind of want to know, well, what is like the science behind a lot of this stuff? Like, can you make a lightsaber? Like those sort of things. It's great. Now he has his own channel. He moved away from them. And it's called Kyle Hill, and he's taken that same type of thing. He has full control, and so I highly recommend him. I don't agree with him all the time, and on this you're going to see me not agree with him. The Because Science guy, I'm going to use Because Logic, and Because Reason. You just don't do that. But I want to like react to some of this, and I want to touch on it a little bit. So, without any further ado, we are going to go over to his channel here, and we are going to watch his video he did on simple graphs explaining why wearing masks, like why you should wear a mask. And my head here, I realize, is covering up like his picture of him wearing a mask, you know, just to show that he does it also. Here we go.
Very contentious, for whatever reason, topic. People say that it is hampering their freedom, that they shouldn't be forced to wear a mask for this long, that it doesn't do anything, or that doctors said it didn't do anything, and then you should wear it, then you shouldn't wear it, and I don't know which mask to wear. Let's try to sort this out. And I would like to try to sort this out, like I usually do, with some graphs. So here's me wearing a face mask. Now, I want to get at a couple of misconceptions here, because I already see in the chat that there's a lot of people with a lot of different opinions, some political ones, which, again, I don't know why, but we'll get into that. So, why should you wear a mask? Well, first of all, let's get one thing straight. What the current recommendation is for people to wear cloth masks, even if they're just like bandanas, is to prevent a certain kind of transmission. These masks are not supposed to prevent ingress, as it's called, ingress of air. So these masks are not specifically tasked with preventing particulates from going through the fibers and into your respiratory tract and infecting you. You have to have certified masks with very tight fits. This is what our medical professionals, doctors and nurses, and responders are wearing, and they are highly specialized equipment. What the recommendation says is that we want to be wearing any kind of cloth mask, even a bandana, because what they are trying to prevent is not ingress of particulates, but egress. So egress meaning particulates escaping from us. And just because of our biology, when we cough, when we sneeze, when we might be shedding virus, as it's called in epidemiology, this virus is usually attached or contained in like water vapor and water droplets and cough droplets and blah, 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 blah.
Okay, now all of this is under the assumption that the COVID-19 virus is a uniform virus, that, and I've seen the extremes of this, like where some people have said, well, it's nothing worse than getting a cold or a flu. Like that's all that it does. To some people who says, no, it's as bad as terminal cancer. If you get it, you're dead. I mean, make out your will. I even saw a thing the other day that, teachers unions or like teachers that have to go back to school. I'm going to make a will. I have to make a will now because I'm going to die. Blah, 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 as Kyle says, to quote him. That becomes the big problem with this. Studies have come out and doctors have said that there is a lot of variance. This isn't like smallpox. This isn't like any of the mumps or measles. This isn't like that. This is like this is a type of flu virus. And so depending on your ethnicity, depending on your health background, of course, we know people with compromised immune systems are going to have it worse with any, virus. Depending on, your health in general. Okay. Are you a healthy person? Are you obese? Do you have a healthy lifestyle? Do you, eat only, plant-based substances and have a strong immune system and can fight stuff off? That all, factors into this. Plus your past, medical history. For example, I had the H1N1 virus, the swine flu, and that was really, really nasty. It lasted for, quite a while. I mean, I was sick for a good 2 weeks at least, and then it took probably like a full month to kind of recover from it. I felt fine, but I sounded awful. And I just didn't have a fever. And even when I went back to work after 2 weeks, they asked me, do you think you should still be here? And I said, well, I don't have a fever. So, I can still be here. Now that was horrendous. My whole family had it. Like we, went through it. And kind of just to point out here that Barack Obama did nothing about that. Okay. 60 million people got it before he even decided to acknowledge it. After it had been around for like 6-9 months, whatever, and it was attacking children and they weren't like shutting down schools or anything. This is something that's not, affecting children, very badly. And so therefore, the reaction that we're doing, the political reaction is, obviously partisan politics. It has nothing to do with, science or reason or anything like that. But, studies have come out that show that by wearing a mask, it doesn't protect you 100%. And that's another false narrative that like this protects you 100%. Okay. So you are completely protected if you wear a mask and you're not going to get it, which is wrong. The thing is that it's in dosages. Okay. Like if I got a full dose, of the COVID-19, I would probably weather it because of my, health history and everything else. I'd probably be fine, even with a full dose of it. I'd be really sick, for like a week or something. And that would be it. It'd be like anything else. And I'd have, build up antibodies and, to it. But what they're saying is that if you wear a mask and you get a lower dosage of it, because it's not all the same, that you will, get a smaller dosage of it, which you won't get as sick, but you'll still build up, an immunity to it. And they've seen this in areas where, some towns have had people where they all tested positive for it, but they thought it was just like a cold or something. And they're all working and they're all fine. And like the next town over, like everybody's in the hospital. And it's like, well, what's the reason why? And you're going to hear the words herd immunity. And the one doctor that I listened to, and I'll put him in the show notes here, and links to his videos, because I thought they were really good in explaining this. He's talking more about community immunity than herd immunity, which makes a lot more sense. And so the community that you're in, having it because you're a lot closer with all of them. So it's the level of dosage and it's your background. So a lot of the charts that Kyle has up here is based on a uniformity of the virus affecting everybody exactly the same way. Okay. And I can understand him going this direction with it. And it does make sense because we're still understanding how this virus works. But, I kind of fault him on the research here because this understanding of it affecting different people in different ways has been around for months, because logic. And so that's my one problem with the way that he's doing this. Now, the next part of this that I'm going to show you is where I think it really starts getting just a little bit ridiculous in the mask wearing thing. So let me jump ahead here to my mark. Okay, and we're gonna go back over to him, and this is his reasoning of wearing the masks again.
60 to 70% of the population. So if 60 to 70% of the population were just wearing even simple cloth masks, we would bring this under the R0 of 1, and we would, as the top of the graph says, the rate of transmission can entirely stop. I'm not making up numbers here. This is entirely possible. On the completely theoretical side, if we all were perfectly isolated, this entire thing would evaporate in 2 weeks. Isn't that crazy? But because we can't do that, this is one way to get at that, to lower the transition rate. And wearing a mask, even if you don't feel sick, especially if you don't feel sick, when you're going out and you're interacting with people, which you shouldn't really be, you should be cutting back on that too, that helps everyone. Now,
Okay, now this is why I found this to be a little bit illogical, if anything, is because he's saying that, if we could all isolate for 2 weeks, this would just completely disappear. That would be it. Yeah, that's untenable. We can't do that. Not only that, but we're taking out the consideration that we share germs all the time. Okay, we're constantly sharing germs with each other. Okay, we have to. It's the way that we exist. It's the way that we live as a species. You want to talk about herd immunity? Here's something. If you completely isolate yourself from other communities and other herds and everything, then you start to, your tolerance for other diseases will start to go down. You actually hurt your immune system by not getting, let's get graphic here, the snot of other people on you and in you. It keeps your antibodies up. It helps make you stronger. Okay. And hey, I'm not making this up here. Let's look at some numbers. Let's just look at a quick, chart, okay, of what happens if you have an entire community, an entire herd that has isolated itself from another herd. Okay, sure, they don't have this particular disease, let's say COVID-19 right now. They don't have that, but then their immunity drops for all these other things. Now, what happens when you have people that didn't isolate themselves completely, have a strong immune system, have these other viruses and those sort of things, and they come into contact with this other community? What's going to happen? Well, they're all going to get sick, and they're going to get sick really bad. So here's a little chart for you, and this is what happened to the Native American population whenever you had the Spanish come over and the conquistadors in Mexico. Look at how their population dropped. That is just this is insane. This is a really insane thing. You go from 21, almost 22 million people. Okay, in 1520, or you could probably even take it to like 1530, right? To almost 1550, and you're down to less than 4 million people. That's insane. That's insane, because these are people. This is what happens when you wear masks all the time, and you encourage everybody to wear masks all the time, and everybody's wearing masks, and everybody's Lysoling their faces and hand sanitizing. You are stopping COVID-19, but you are also stopping every single thing, every other thing. I mean, their population in Mexico dropped in, what is that, like 1620 there? In less than 100 years, it wiped out 21 million people out of 22 million. That's why would you want to do that? Why would you want to advocate for this? This is ridiculous. I mean, just so that we can make sure that, less than 1% of the population is not affected by this. What other? I mean, what if we did this with something that worked the same way? It's not uniform across the, across the spectrum. It affects people in a different way, and there's a 2.5%, infection rate or negative association rate, and that's peanut allergies. Peanut allergies. So now nobody should be allowed to eat peanut butter. Every single peanut based thing needs to be gone. No factories can make it. There can't be any cross contamination, because the people who need to stay away from it, who do stay away from it. And that's the whole thing with this mask wearing and this COVID thing. If you are high risk, if you are susceptible to it, yes, wear the mask, because even if you do get it while you're wearing a mask, you're going to get a lower dosage of it. Okay, and you have a better chance of fighting it off rather than getting like a full blast. But to then compromise your immune system in every other way, it's like with the reaction, the peanut reaction that we're having to it of nobody's allowed to eat peanut butter, okay, because 2.5% of the population is allergic to peanuts. All right, and generally, anybody that has any type of food allergy at all, 25% of those have some type of reaction to a peanut allergy. It may kill them, it may not. It just may make them sick. It may break out in hives. Who knows? I mean, it runs the spectrum. So we don't behave this way with with other things. Okay, we don't do that. And this whole thing that he's saying now about, oh yeah, well, you know what? Here's something. If we could just isolate ourselves for 2 weeks, this whole thing is gone. And and it's like, if we take that logic with every other thing that we have, I mean, seriously, it sounds unreasonable. For some reason, right now, this sounds reasonable. But if we do that with anything else, it's totally unreasonable. And I'm gonna play another part of this for you, and I'm going to show you the unreasonableness of it that we get to here. So I'll just I'll just let this continue playing. Let me jump over here.
I see people in the chat even here saying, well, we have to get the herd immunity up, and this is kind of trespassing on my personal freedom, and that's true. It is. Unfortunately, you all signed up for a society. If we want to live as human beings in large societies, we have to follow and acknowledge our own biology, and there are things that you give up when you enter a society. There are rules, and public health is one of those rules. You can't just, poison the water supply or something like that. Well, that prevents my personal freedom from putting poison in stuff. Well, yes, technically it does, but we are looking out for everyone in a society.
See, I love Kyle. I think that he's really funny, but he's just really off on all this stuff. So let me say exactly what he said using something totally different. Okay, using a different example than this COVID thing, or even poisoning wells. He said, first off, you signed up for a society. Yes, you did. You signed up for a free society, a society where people don't tell you what to do. You did not sign up for a socialist society, which is, I think, what he's working under. But that's okay. We could still work with that, because let's just say argument's sake, we're taking his theory, his thoughts here, that this is in fact a society construct that you sign up for. Okay, check this out. If everyone in our society became a Christian that held to strict standards of sexual morality, meaning no sex before marriage, no extramarital affairs, one partner for life. Guess what? In a generation, every single sexually transmitted disease is evaporated. There would be no more AIDS epidemic. It's gone. Okay? It's totally out there because you signed up for this. Well, wait, doesn't that affect my freedom to be able to do what I... Yeah, it does. But you signed up for a society, and there's social norms, and there's health costs into effect, and so you're going to have to do this. Okay? Now, just real quickly, what are the health costs, for all of this? Like, if we did that, okay, if we actually sat down and said, you know what, we are going to do this. Let me see if I can find this. Oh, yeah, I think I have it on the same page I had this on. Okay, so the cost of HIV, okay, and, just in Pennsylvania, okay, just in Pennsylvania alone, this is, let me switch the camera over here so you can see what I'm pulling up. Okay, so the cost alone here of the treatment in 2019, okay, right here, for a person, for over the life of the person, okay, is, $367,000 on average. Okay, now, if you're talking about universal health care, where I have to pay for your health care, then I'm going to have a say in the way that you live your life, okay? Because I am a heterosexual male Christian who is committed to my wife and will never have a extramarital affair because of my convictions and because of my faith. Therefore, I'm not going to get, nor have I ever gotten, sexually transmitted diseases, including AIDS. I'm not going to cost, people. I'm not going to cost a state or my community, $367,000. I'm not going to do that. And so therefore, I shouldn't have to pay for irresponsible behavior. But because logic, you then should not be allowed to behave in that way because of this cost. Now, in Pennsylvania, we're going to scroll up and we're going to look at how many people in 2019 in Pennsylvania, here we are, these were the number of new cases. 1,736 new cases. Estimating the total of $637 million. $million that we have to fit the bill for. That the cost is going to be for, especially if you want universal health care. That's it. Now, this is not, it's 637 million. Well, we can swing that. No, this is for the people. These are new infections in 2009. If we assume this is accrued every single year. Every year, you're going to get this. If this is now billions of dollars, and you wonder why, medical costs are so high. You wonder why, after, the Obama administration destroyed the insurance companies with Obamacare and everything, and why your health insurance and everything over the last 10 years has gotten so expensive. It's because you have to cover people who engage in irresponsible behavior because they don't agree with the social contract. Here. All right. This is huge. This is an enormous number, and this is something that, does affect every single person equally. This is not COVID-19. We're not freaking out over these numbers. We're not freaking out over this logic, but COVID-19 and signing up for the whole health and, all that stuff, we are. So, based on his logic, all right, don't be promiscuous and don't engage in sex outside of marriage. There you go. Solve the problem. We have now eradicated not only AIDS and herpes and, chlamydia and every sexually transmitted disease ever. It's gone. It's eradicated now people were living healthier lifestyles, the healthcare cost is dramatically going to drop. How about this? The number one killer in the United States is heart disease from, fatty foods and stuff. Let's eliminate all fast foods. All right. How about, medical malpractice? People dying because of medical care is up there. It's like number 2 or 3 that kills people. All right. Well, maybe we should abolish all medical facilities. You see how ridiculous this gets? And with you can't eat these things, or you can't smoke, or you can't drink, or you can't do whatever. Well, doesn't that infringe on my freedoms? Well, yeah, but there's stuff we got to do for the good of all society. No, that's the thing. The social contract that you signed, which you didn't, but that you were born into, more than likely, unless you immigrated here to this country and you see the benefits of being an American, and then you sign up for it, is that you are free. That's the contract that you signed up with. The freedom to choose whether or not I want to wear a mask, or I do, or if I want to eat, steaks and smoke like cigars every day. It's like, Babe Ruth, he, was with prostitutes all the time, smoked a dozen cigars a day and died of steak, ate a bunch of steaks, and then he died early because he's obese. All right. But you know what? As an American, that's his choice. We don't go around telling people. That is not our social contract. Okay. Now let's go back to Kyle here and see what he has to say.
Society. And I know that's kind of a bombastic example, and it's not really fair, but how about a different one? So this kind of affects the argument, what price do we put on human life? I see people saying, just open it all up. Everyone's going to get it. Just have everyone get it all at once. We'll get the herd immunity up, and whatever happens is not going to be as bad as the economic cost. So that is putting a price tag on human life. And it sounds abhorrent, but it's something that we do as a society, again, every day. For example, if we made the speed limit 1 mile per hour for everyone everywhere, there would be less deaths on the road each year. But we have decided as a society that the inconvenience of getting everywhere very slowly and the possible economic impact of that is more important than 40,000 deaths on the road. Love it or hate it, it's an ethical decision that we made as a society. And so now we're making the same kind of decision here. But I say, there's an economic cost, yes. But if we all wear masks and we follow these guidelines, the better we do so, the quicker this all ends. And if trampling on your perceived personal freedom to not wear a mask in public can be achieved as simply as just asking you to wear a bandana over your nose and mouth, then your conception of what is truly free and patriotic in my mind is a bit warped. This is something so easy that...
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump over to that. So that's about all we needed to see there. But that becomes, the issue, because it's not just the masks. Okay, I don't know any state that says just wear a mask and life as usual. They've shut down small businesses. They've shut down restaurants. They shut down the heart of their economies. Many states have. Okay, and by shutting things down and isolating people and doing that, the problems that are caused. I mean, we're seeing a rise in domestic violence and in drug and alcohol addiction, and I mean there are so many more things that go into this. And as people are unemployed and get depressed, this exacerbates it. Like this moves up, and I know that there are all kinds of different numbers. But every 1% of unemployment has a reaction in suicide rates. Okay, they go up. It's not like the more unemployment you have, the lower the suicide rate goes. It goes up. So as you're putting people out of work, so it's more than just masks. Okay, because if it was, if you could do a reducto ad absurdum, reduce this to the absurd of, hey, just put a cloth over your face and everything's good. All right, I'll put a cloth over my face and and I'm going to go have a meal in a restaurant that's crowded with other people. Well, nope, you can't do that. We can't have crowded places. We can't do that. So you're killing the economy. It's not just a matter of doing that. This isn't like some, well, you'd be more patriotic if you did. Well, you know what? You'd be more patriotic if you were a Christian. I mean, if we want to go in that direction, that would be it too. But the background that he's getting at with this, herd immunity and all this stuff, and we can hurry up, like we'll shut stuff down, but we'll hurry up and no, there's no guarantee of that. There's no guarantee, because the people that are saying wear the masks and shut everything down are not giving you the guarantee of this hurries up and, X, Y, and Z boxes have to be checked off. They're always moving the goalposts. So that doesn't work. That's a little bit more, illogical. And this is why, the whole mask thing and getting the herd immunity up, or the community immunity up, I would say, if you are susceptible, wear a mask. That's it. If you are less susceptible and you don't want to, don't. But this isn't going to be a huge health crisis. This isn't something that's going to go away. It's a virus. It's going to be here. It's around. It's like saying if we all did this and isolated enough, then the flu goes away. Flu's never going away, and neither is this. This is a flu substance here. So, what I'm going to do is I am going to pause here on the audio, on the podcast, and I thank you for listening. And you're going to hear the closer. But I'm going to continue on Patreon, and I'm going to go over Todd Friel and the Christian responsibility of obeying the government with all of these all of these mandates and you having to wear a mask. And Todd comes at it from a different perspective that I do. So I am going to be responding to Wretched Radio, and I'm going to be really tough on him. He had to do 2 videos of it, and he has to be absolutely insistent and emphatic about it.
Wretched Radio with Todd Friel.
Can't think of an exception. This is Wretched Radio. Every time God gives a commandment and we submit, even when it doesn't feel good, when we don't like it, if you dig just a little bit deeper, I believe every time, I can't think of an exception, every time there will be a joy benefit. There will be something that should cause you to delight in being obedient. Obviously, to be obedient to God should be a joyful duty and delight. But there's always a way of looking at a command to go, oh, wow. Not only does that benefit me, my obedience brings about something eternal and transcendent. I can't think of an exception to this. For instance, God tells you, don't look with lust. Don't sit around the water cooler making bawdy jokes. Don't have...
Okay, so he's going to try and move this into wearing a mask is the same thing as actively committing sins. If you say, I'm not going to wear a mask, the government says you have to do it, and he said, and if you, as a free American, say, "I'm not going to do it," he's saying this is the same thing, the exact same thing, as cheating on your wife. Seriously, that's his mindset. Okay, by him saying, you look at lust, look at a woman lustfully, using the words of Jesus there, showing that you've committed adultery in your heart. Okay, so basically, he's saying, if you don't wear a mask, you then you might as well be cheating on your wife. I'm going to skip ahead here so that we can get to the meat of some of this.
More than just an admonition. I think that there's an uplifting element to obedience that we too often overlook. Consider the context. 1 Peter 2, 13 and 14. Be subject for the Lord's sake. Wow, that's an interesting little prepositional phrase. So when I am submitting, I am subjecting myself to a human institution. I'm being obedient no matter how they behave, because remember, when this was written, Nero was the king of nasty, and Peter says, submit to that institution. whether it be the emperor as supreme or two governors. In other words, whatever level of government, you do what you're told. As
That's right.
sent
and
by
let's remember that in Nazi Germany, everything that the Nazis did was legal. If they told you to turn in Jewish people who were hiding and you didn't do it, you're not being obedient to the government. I mean, this is ridiculous because, Todd he's moving, into this very, communistic understanding of America, that somehow, and see, this becomes a problem. Todd will never admit that this is wrong either. He can't. Because for him to admit this is wrong would admit that he has no faith and he'd go to hell because, he is a volunteerist. And so he has to volunteer to be saved. And therefore, if he's wrong on anything, he will feel that he is not saved. And so he can't be. It's a literal impossibility. Even if you go through and you show this, when he said, I can't think of anything, it's because he hasn't looked. All right, Todd's not a stupid guy. All right, I've listened to his show for years. I've listened to him for years. He's a very good Christian. He's a very good evangelist. He has really bad theology. And that surprises me because he hangs out with people like Vodi Bakum, who's phenomenal. But yet, it doesn't sink in. Like, I mean, he just doesn't do the research. He doesn't do any understanding. I mean, how can he sit there and say, I have never thought of any other way here at all? Let's just say, hypothetically, Todsky Firlalai, my Russian friend here, Russian bot friend, I guess, who is an American. You're saying that, Peter and them are saying, yes, Nero, king and Asti, obey him. Okay, all right, sure. What if Todd Friel was the king? What if Todd Friel was the king? Should I listen to Todd Friel? What if Todd Friel happened to live in a country at a time where he was the governing authority? Would we listen to him? Well, Todd's sitting there going, well, yeah, I think we could listen to him, or however he sounds. And I would agree. And he'd be like, yes, because he is the ruler, because he is the one who is in control. As he likes to, end sentences like that. In America, we the people are the governing authority. We delegate our authority. We do not divest or diminish our authority. Okay? We still keep the authority. That is and you like the 10 Commandments? Well, here's the 10 Amendments. Okay? The 10th Amendment is for the people to retain all of the rights that are enshrined in the Constitution. And we delegate that. That's why we have representatives. They represent us. Okay? They have the title of govern because we have done. Now, if they don't do what we like, we remove them. We remove them because we have the power to remove them. In Romans 13, it talks about, the governing authority, you are to obey them because they have the sword. God has given them the sword, okay, to correct right or wrong. That's why the Second Amendment exists. We have the sword. We, the people, have the sword because we, the people, are the ones who are in control. This isn't difficult to do. A little bit of research, Todd would have been able to figure this out, but he doesn't. He doesn't. And so he just continues on and on in this rant for somebody from another country. He's not talking to Americans. If you watch Todd Friel, if you watch this thing, he says, for Christians who hate being told to wear a mask, the title is, and then we're going to go to another video. He doubles down on this. He's not talking to American Christians. I don't know who he's talking to. He's talking to Christians in other countries where they've been told this, but he's certainly not talking to American Christians. He can't be. Because if he was talking to American Christians, he would be extremely wrong. And for him to be extremely wrong would mean that he, according to Romans 13, is actually fighting God. He's going against God. He is not submitting. he is in error. He may go as far as to say as he was a carnal Christian. He was just behaving like a Christian, but wasn't really a Christian. So he wasn't really saved. He didn't really hear the gospel. He needs to get saved again. Whatever his, funny little soteriology is of, his works-based righteousness, which is what it is, but, not truly. Don't get me wrong. The man's saved. He doesn't understand it. He doesn't understand how he's saved. He doesn't understand that, Christ did it all. He gives lip service to that, but he's never internalized it. And internalizing it is not what saves you, regardless of what Todd Friel said. I guess I can't say irregardless now because that's a word in the dictionary, unfortunately. So we're going to continue to listen on to what, Todd Ski Friel has to say to, I don't know, the Christians that aren't American, I guess.
By him to do a task. Because remember, a bad government is better than no government at all. Paging Minneapolis. Hello. Paging Minneapolis. You want people in authority to punish bad guys, right? Subject for the Lord's sake. So what does that look like? It means no matter how bad the government is, there's no exception that is offered by Peter or by Paul in Romans chapter 13. Remember that culture. You had rampant debauchery going on, sexual perversion in the streets, infanticide, government corruption, abuse of women, immorality, violence. Submit for the Lord's sake. Just obey the rules. If they're not telling you to sin, do what you're told. Pay taxes, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. From the Cripplegate. So if the school tells you to cut your hair, you cut your hair willingly. If the flight attendant tells you to turn off your phone, you turn off your phone joyfully. If the government...
Okay, look, there's a difference between private and public enterprises, okay? If the flight attendant tells you to turn off your phone because it's their private policy, as Americans, we respect that. And we do that if we wish to patronize that place. If I go to a place and they are a private institution and say, we will not serve you unless you wear a mask that has Trump 2020 written across it. And I really want to patronize that place. I got to find a mask that says Trump 2020 across it to go in and to patronize them. That is their prerogative. They are not a government. Okay? So therefore, that breaks down. Todd should remove that from this analogy. Now with the schools, okay, the schools are public entities put in place by the private citizens. All right. If they say, cut your hair, you go to the teachers union, the superintendent, you file the grievances, you say you are a public entity under the Constitution of the United States, which guarantees these certain freedoms. You do not go against the founding documents of your country, disobeying them in your actions to give the appearance of obeying another smaller government entity. Okay? The federal government, and we're having this problem in Pennsylvania, okay? The federal government guarantees rights under the Constitution, okay? One of the rights under the Constitution is that you are to be governed in a Republican fashion, in a representative way. In Pennsylvania, Governor Wolf has been sidestepping that to the point where he is actually trampling on the rights, and the federal government may have to come in and enforce those. This is why we don't have slavery anymore, because after the Civil War was won, the federal government retained the authority to go and say to these other states, you are free to conduct yourselves as under the umbrella of the United States under this Constitution where you give these rights to everybody. You have to obey this, or we will come in and we will force you to obey them. That's the difference here. So if a school is violating somebody's rights, then the Constitution actually supersedes that thing. And you can say to them, as your right, as the one who is the power and authority, no, I'm not going to cut my hair. And I'm not going to do it joyfully. Okay? Todd will be the first in line for a vaccine because the vaccine will be mandated. He will get into the vaccine boxcar and be taken to the vaccine concentration camps. He'll be the first one to do that and encourage others to do it because that is the governing authority. All right. When you don't understand your position, you know, in America, if you've been told that America is a democracy for so long, you're going to start to believe it when we're not. We've never been a democracy and we never will be. A democracy is mob rule. We are not mob rule. Okay. We are not to submit to, if I became the mayor of Wretched Radio there, the mayor of Toddville, and I said to Todd, you are no longer allowed to assemble yourself with other Christians. You are to forsake that. I am your authority. What do you do, Todd? Well, I wonder what his response would be. I really do. Well, the Bible says I should. Really? Are you doing that now? Or because the government says that this many people cannot be in a room together, no, therefore you can't do it. Are you staying home or are you going to church? What are you doing right now? That gives me the answer. I mean, it's not difficult, but he's turning this into some very difficult political thing.
Government tells you to wear a mask in public. You comply enthusiastically. That is what is being asked of us when we are told to submit as unto the Lord. We are submitting to Him when we submit to those that He has put in place, whether they are pleasant and polite, evil or apparently moral. We are submitting to Him.
Now, I'm not being very polite. I'm getting fired up and I'm actually being kind of snarky and you know, kind of mean about this. But I have to use harsh tones because of what he's saying. And Todd has to listen to me because I'm the one who's in authority. I am an American citizen. We, the people, have the power and the authority. And not only does he have to submit to me, Todd, you gotta love me. And you got to do it joyfully. Don't talk back to me. Just do it. Just listen to what I have to say. Because you don't understand the structure of American society. And I'm telling you, I'm the authority. Todd, you listen to me pleasantly, with enthusiasm.
This is a heart issue, kids. Maybe your mom's having a crabby day. Do what you're told happily, as unto the Lord. Madam, you have a situation in your home and the husband says what is a decision that perhaps you don't agree with. Surrender to the Lord. And you are doing something eternal. But wait, there's even more. To have a submissive attitude is to do what? Just be obedient? Perhaps even reap an eternal reward? That ain't shabby, but how's about you get to reflect the nature of Jesus Christ? Did he or did he not submit to the government? Yes, he did, to the point of death. And that is what we should be thinking when the government tells us to do something that gets you. I'm sorry, what was it? Robin, was what? Ballistic? Was that the terminology you used?
Go with livid.
Todd Friel
Which is really funny because I know Robin. When I think of Robin, I actually think sweet and pleasant.
He has like a
not
10-foot
livid.
Most of the time. Yep.
You know? He reaches out to the camera. He's
There was
like,
ranting.
"Oh, I'm Todd Friel.
We
Giant
can be acquiring eternal rewards. We are being obedient to God and rendering it as an act of worship to Him. and we're looking like Jesus Christ. Hold on. It gets even better. Submitting to the authority for the sake of God tells others you trust him and his sovereignty. You are giving a testimony. When everybody's grumbling about putting on a mask and you go, I'm putting on my mask. What are you saying? God rules and reigns over me. This must be good for me. Otherwise, it wouldn't be happening. So I'm going to do it as a joyful testimony to him. Furthermore,
this is happening to me, and therefore it is good because it must be from God. Oh, this is that socialist communist mindset. This really is. Like, this is one of the saddest things that we're listening to. He has a huge audience. Todd Friel has such a big audience, and he is so wrapped up in himself that I know he's never going to see this video. I know he's never going to see any of these critiques. Okay, this is really for you. I'm going to say it again. I don't want to be completely down on Wretched Radio. You know, he used to be teamed up with Kirk Cameron and Ray Comfort, you know, and they did all their, you know, funny little stuff and everything like that. I must have a falling out because I don't see them ever doing anything together again. You know, somebody, I'm going to be snarky here, but somebody probably like thought the wrong thing at some point. Well, they got to divide because, you know, they are not looking to reform anything. They are looking to divide and be pure and Puritans. And so this is the example here. I'm going to listen through to a little bit more of this and see if I need to edit anything out, but we're just going to continue on.
and this brings us back to what I think is the key verse in 1 Peter. 5 chapters, it's right in the middle, 1 Peter 3:15. To act in such a way that people ask about the hope that lies within you. People who don't know Jesus, that hate wearing masks, you're not making sense, dude. Everybody rebels, cuts corners, grumbles about authority. Why don't you?
This is Rich.
All right, so I accidentally hit the back button there. I'll jump back up, see if I can find where we're at.
And we're looking like Jesus Christ. Hold on. It gets even reigns over me. This must be good for me. Otherwise, it...
Okay. So, yes, by submitting to government, by telling, and I think we're gonna check out the part 2 where he doubles down on it, because I think somebody calls him out for the mark of the beast on there, and he has to backpedal on all that because, hey, the government tells you you have to wear a mask. The government tells you you have to wear a glove. The government tells you that you have to have a mark on your right hand or on your forehead if you want to buy and sell or do anything. Go and gladly do it, because by doing those things, you show that you love Jesus Christ. Are you kidding me? We're going to see if he goes in that direction. But he's saying that going against the government as established in your country by blindly and willfully submitting to them is honoring to Christ. So he's literally saying, he's making the opposite point. He's saying all these great things, he's forfeiting them because he's doing the opposite of what Scripture tells him to do, even though he's trying to back it up with Scripture. But this is why context is important. Not only, context of the time, but context of the present time. Okay? I'm sure that, Todsky Frillalai and his wife, does he insist that she wear a head covering and not speak in church? Because I can find those things in the Bible, even though I just took them out of context, use them as an irrational example. But he would read that, and if you said, "Well, don't women have to wear a head covering?" He'd say, "Well, no, it was that culture." Whoa, wait a minute. You're taking this, and you're not taking the culture into consideration. Not at all. Continue.
It wouldn't be happening, so I'm going to do it as a joyful testimony to him. Furthermore, and this brings us back to what I think is the key verse in 1 Peter. 5 chapters, it's right in the middle, 1 Peter 3:15. To act in such a way that people ask about the hope that lies within you. People who don't know Jesus, that hate wearing masks, you're not making sense, dude. Everybody rebels, cuts corners, grumbles about authority. Why don't you? It's almost as if, like, you believe that God is in control or something. Bingo!
Really, Todd? So, under our law, we have the right to petition the government for the redress of grievances. First Amendment. Todd says that is wrong. Really? The rights that you have are wrong, according to Todd Friel. If you exercise the rights that you have, that is wrong, according to Todd Friel. And you are not behaving as a Christian, according to Todd Friel.
That is what we can be doing when we are obedient to the government and we do something that is really annoying. When the rest of the world, your pals, your family, and perhaps, now imagine this for a second. Look at the opportunity that you have right now. Let's just say, I'm going to make this up. Your name is Robin. We'll just say something like that.
Sure.
And let's just say, when the family has been together, you've been making it crystal clear that you're livid, which I believe is the correct word. You're livid about the idea of wearing masks. And then your kids see you put on that mask without grumbling and complaining. And they go, Robin or Mom, what's up? You know, God has put this government in place. God is my authority. I'm submitting to him, and I'm going to do it happily without grumbling. Whoa. Now tell me that wouldn't be impactful.
Yeah, it would. It's called hypocrisy. It's called hypocrisy. It's called being a hypocrite. It's called saying one thing and doing another. That's what it's called. Okay? So if you stand with your convictions as an American and you say, I do not want to wear that mask, regardless on if it's right or wrong. I mean, you know, on the podcast, we went through this, you know, the wearing the mask thing, the benefits and all of that. But, you know, if you sit there and say, I think this is wrong, I don't want to do this, this is stupid, we shouldn't, all these things, and then in front of your children, you don't stand by your convictions. It would be the same thing as saying, you know, I totally think that it is, you know, wrong for people to go to church and worship on Sunday. But we're going to church and we're worshiping on Sunday. What's that message? Kids aren't dumb. They pick up on that stuff. Whoa. 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 Whoa.
Tell me that wouldn't make a statement. Is that easy? Not a chance. Now, when you feel deeply and passionately about something, and chances are pretty fair, it's been informed a lot by 21st century Western ideals, specifically American ideals. This is a testimony. What are you saying to the world when you are obedient? Conclusion from Cripplegate. Submit to every human institution for the Lord's sake. This is a dazzling witness, and it is pure worship. When you submit to the authority over you, you are acknowledging that God placed them there, trusting God to do his will for you and through them, and trusting God to be good to you and bring his justice in the end. So,
imagine reading that with the proper American context. That you, the American, we, the people who formed this country, we, the people who put this government in place with its limitations, we, the people who have the right to dissolve this government, we, the people who have the right to nullify laws. Yes, jury nullification exists. All right, 10th Amendment. We have these rights as Americans. It puts us in a particular place, and therefore, if you are fighting against any of them, you are fighting against God. Imagine Imagine if you read that little section that he just read to Todd after making this, observation of truth and how to understand and interpret the Bible, especially Romans 13, which I will be preaching on September 6th in my church because we follow the liturgy. And you'll be able to check that out at bridgewaterpresby.com or .org rather, or on the YouTube page. And you can watch the live stream there. And I will be preaching from Romans 13. And people that don't understand the American culture have a very difficult time, understanding Romans 13. And this Western 21st century American attitude, which is more like Todd Friel's, which is more like blindly accept everything because the government is Jesus Christ. He didn't say that exactly, but basically he said obeying the government is like obeying Jesus Christ. I would never say that. I would never go that far. That's tremendously wrong in an American context to say that. You cannot say that. It's actually the opposite. Okay, obeying the government is not like, this is why, you see, our governor in Pennsylvania, he's not a stupid man. All right, I'll give you that. He is a very smart man, and he is smart enough to know better when it comes to churches. He has never put any regulations on any church at all across Pennsylvania. He wouldn't dare do it, because if he did, he knows that the lawsuits would be coming. He would be losing them. There's no way that's an open and shut case. Violation of the separation of church and state, which means the state does not tell the church what to do. It does not mean the church does not tell the state what to do. The church has authority and can tell the state what to do. The people in the church can tell the state what to do. Yes, the separation of church and state is under the understanding the state does not establish a church. And the establishment of a church is commanding people to go to that church. All right. If the state church of Pennsylvania opened up and they said, if you're a Pennsylvanian, you are mandated to go to this church, you cannot go to any other church, that is the church you have to go to. That is a violation. That is what it's talking about. It is not talking about the church cannot have a say. Okay. They like to make it that way. They like to frame it that way. They like to try to say, well, we're going to take away your tax exempt status. Yeah, I dare you. I dare you to bring that. Go ahead, do it. Let's see. I'd love to see that happen. The government would lose that so fast. That is an idle threat, and people buy it. That is an idle threat. They would lose that so quickly. And you have nonprofits that engage in political action all the time. Unions are nonprofit, and they are the most Democrat partisan people you will ever meet in your entire life. They fundraise, they funnel money. It's awful, and they're a nonprofit. Churches are a nonprofit, but somehow they have been, bullied into thinking that they can't say anything politically one way or the other, which they can. I don't think it's appropriate to do from the pulpit. That's why you're not going to hear me do it. I'm not going to be stumping for political candidates, locally or nationally from the pulpit. I think that's in poor taste. The pulpit is for the gospel. That is for worshiping God and understanding his law. And so you don't do that. You don't sit there and bring every single social structure in the world or social justice, whatever, in there. You preach from the gospel. You preach the gospel. You preach God's word. You preach the Bible. That's the place for it. The separation of church and state thing is so misunderstood.
My anti-mask wearing friend, might I encourage you to consider not just the admonition, but the benefits of being a pro-masker if it is required. This is Wretched Radio.
Hey, Todd, it's required to be an American in America. Let's give that a shot. All right? Why don't we try that? Because it seems like you don't want to do that either. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to jump to his part 2. If I can find it, I should have marked it. Like, that would have probably been the really smart thing to do, would have been to mark it. But I didn't, because I don't do the really smart thing. Here it is, round 2.
I'm going to do it again. This is Wretched Radio, discussing lovingly a difference of opinion on most certainly a tertiary issue, but it is a most excellent biblical exercise. Masks, the government, and 1 Peter 2. Do I submit, even if it is a mandate I don't like from a government I'm not nuts about, because 1 Peter 2 and Romans 13 say, submit to your government, do what you're told, pay your taxes, honor the king, and even the local authorities. Makes its way down the ladder. I offered, I'm afraid I think we do. You may or may not like it, but I don't see an out. I don't see any way of escaping a clear command, and so it is. But
okay, it is a very clear command, and if you took the time to understand it, if you took the time to read your Bible and apply it, not in a short circuit mode where you lift it up from that time period and drop it in here, then you would have that. See, that is called hermeneutics, and I say that very condescendingly because that is how Todd Friel likes to say it, and just gander and good. So I am saying that to him, that if he had an understanding of proper biblical hermeneutics, which is the art and science of biblical interpretation, he would understand that when it comes to civil law commandments in Scripture, that it has to be understood and applied within the context of the people. Okay? Missionaries have this issue with contextualizing the gospel for the people that they are witnessing to, so that they can understand it and that it can be done in a proper way. I wrote a paper about the controversy in Kenya in the 20th century, starting in the early 20th century and going into the mid, on female circumcision. And part of the problem was I wrote the paper in 2 sections. I wrote it from a Western perspective, and then I wrote it from the African perspective. And then I had my conclusion at the end. Basically, what was being said was that we need to just have black Europeans. That will solve everything. Their culture did not understand that. Their culture did not understand why Scripture says very clearly that they took to mean, under the circumcision controversy with female circumcision, Paul saying circumcision or uncircumcision doesn't matter. Well, if that's true, why were you pushing this on us? Well, because we want black Europeans. That's what we want. So, you don't just lift stuff out of one culture and cram it into another culture. Even if you're going back 2,000 years to that culture, you don't lift it up and cram it into this culture. You look for the timeless principle. What is the timeless principle? Submit to the authorities. Who are the authorities in America? We the people. Submit to the will of we the people. We have laws. We have amendments. We have ways of creating new amendments. We have ways of representing ourselves. We have ways of checks and balances. If you are disgruntled, you may petition the government. That is not illegal. That is not going against the government. In fact, that is the most obeying the governing authority thing that you can possibly do, is grumble and protest about it, against it. That's there. So, Todd, please stop with the And you're doubling down on this. We're on the second video. You are doubling down on this bad hermeneutic. And we're going to continue listening to it.
Before we jump back into your responses, you're loving. They truly were. It was just a delight to read your disagreements with me, because it's the way Christians should dialogue with one another. Let me try to respond with another anecdote. Let's just say, for yucks, that you are a parent and you give your child a command to do something. And your child responded by saying, yeah, but Dad, 3 days ago, you said something else. So therefore, I'm not going to obey you. You'd say, well, look, honey, I'm not going to go back and go to court over what happened a few days ago. This is today, and this is what I'm telling you. So I'm telling you, you've got to go clean your room right now. That's what you would expect, because you have that authority. And even if you weren't acting in the most consistent manner, you would expect obedience. And I think that's what we're commanded to do in Romans 13 and 1 Peter 2, even if the government isn't being consistent.
In that anecdote, we the people are the parent. The child is the people that we have put in place to represent us, and we have delegated the authority, the governing authority. We can complain. We can say to the child that is not doing the will of the parent, which is us, we the people, you need to go do that, honey. I'm not going to go back to court for this. I'm not going to say this again like this. I don't care if I have been inconsistent as we the people. You are to do this. Do you see how when you put his anecdotes in their proper biblical relational understanding to the society and the context that we are speaking in, it works, but yet he's twisting it. He used to have the twisted scripture, soundbite in his old radio show and everything. That was hilarious. These videos, these two, this is the most twisted scripture consistently that I've heard, and he's not backing down on it. I mean, I've heard him twist scripture in other places, but he's really not backing down on this. He sees himself as so right, so extremely right, that there is just nothing that anybody can do about it. All right, Todd. All right, Toddski Freelalai. Continue on, comrade.
And even if this is a moving target, we still have to obey. Anecdote number 2. You're a parent and you say to your child, I would like for you to wash your brother's bicycle. And if your child said, can't do that, Dad, because I think that you have a plan. You just want me to be busy out here with the bicycle because you plan on signing papers to have me adopted to another family. You'd say, whether or not I actually have those plans, I'm telling you to go wash your brother's bike. And you can do that because you have the authority, despite what your nefarious intentions may or may not be. You have the authority to do so, and you'd expect your child to behave. And I think that's fair with what we have going on with our government. We may think that this is nefarious. We may believe that this is about the election in the fall. It could be. History may.
So, in Todd's second one here, we actually do have that. It says in the Declaration of Independence, in the fullness of time, that we have come to form a more perfect union. And in our Constitution, it is enshrined that if our government ceases to function properly, we may take up arms and that we may reestablish a government. We may take it down and establish it. So again, his analogy is true. If we tell our government, hey, we want you to go and look at this shiny object while we dismantle you and get rid of you and establish anew, we can call a constitutional convention. We can disassemble the entire United States Constitution based on the United States Constitution with the things that are in it. So yes, we can say to those who are in the governing authority that have been abusing their power and have been terrible, to say, we're going to restructure it and we're going to do it in the same way that, you know what? you can't be a career politician. That everybody is going to have term limits now. Never used to be like that. The presidential term limit thing happened within, I think, the last 100 years, because we had, presidents dying in office and stuff. They were reelected 3-4 times. General Washington, he was only president for 2 election cycles because he said, you know what, 2's enough. We don't want a king. We don't want an emperor. And the Congress made that law and put that in place because they said one person should not have that much authority and power for that long. And these are people that have been in Congress 30, 40, 50 years, some 60 years. Yeah, they shouldn't have it either. So, yes, we very well could sign the adoption papers to kick these bums out, form a new country. That is actually our prerogative as we the people. Guess who can't form a country? The government. The government does not have that authority. They do not have the authority of the power of the sword. We take it from them. We can take it from them. Wait, what? Yes, jury nullification. If somebody is on trial for something that they did and it was against the law, and we as a jury said, yes, they did that. Yes, that was against the law. That is a bad law. We can nullify it. And therefore, they go free. Because it was an unjust law to begin with. And it wouldn't have to go all the way up to the Supreme Court. But that has happened. It's gone to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has ruled with them. The Heller decision, of people maintaining the sword. Yeah, Ted Cruz fought against Dianne Feinstein about that. There you are. This shows the example. Todd Friel does not understand the American system whatsoever. And because of it, he is not doing proper hermeneutics. He is not doing good Bible interpretation. He is actually doing the thing that is in his mind the most heinous thing that somebody can do, and that is disobeying Christ and fighting God. That's where we're at.
May or may not reveal it. Other talk shows can deal with it. But in the meantime, Romans 13 and 1 Peter 2 says, do what you're told. It doesn't matter what they're up to.
Precisely. That's it. The government is to do what they're told. It doesn't matter what the people are up to. I'm just fixing it for you, Todd. That's all I'm doing. I'm just fixing it for you.
It is very likely that Nero was doing things to Christians in order to get away with setting the place on fire himself. Nevertheless, Paul says, submit to that guy. He's up to shenanigans, up to no goods. He's a liar. He's a terrible emperor. Submit to him. And that is the same situation I think we find ourselves in. And I can't get...
That's right. That's right, Todd. So when you have Americans that say, I'm not going to wear the mask, Todd, submit to them. Submit to them. Because you attacking them for not wearing a mask, you telling them that they're not Christians, or that they are unchristian, or that they are not representing Christ, or whatever, wherever you're going with this, it's obviously has a negative connotation against Christianity. Even they're not the best Christians, whatever. By you saying that, you're the one who's in the wrong. You're the one who's in error. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. But for you to try to guilt other people into doing it using our religion is going against the very precepts that you are discussing.
Get around it. And my attitude or preference for masking or for not masking, it really doesn't matter. They have the authority given by God. And so it is. We'll jump back into your responses. I tried to grab a number of them that I thought were representative of many more. And you can continue to send me emails if you'd like to at idea@wretched.org.
Let's see what
are
happens
about
here.
shame, writes Kenneth, about perpetuating fear and exercising control. This is the modus operandi of the Democrats running their states into the ground at their whim. You could be entirely right. Submit to the government.
Yep, that's it. You could be entirely right that your servants are doing horrible things. They are being bad servants. You know what? Encourage them to keep being bad servants, because that's what a good ruler does. That's what we learn from Scripture, right? Bad servants are never, given the wages of their wickedness. No, never at all. We can't have that. Let them do what they want. Wow. Talk about a extreme antinomianism here. Todd, that's what you just said. Antinomianism, no law. There is no law. Nothing. That's what you just said. Yeah.
Submit to your authorities. You could be right, Kenneth. I wouldn't argue with you.
I
don't see that there's a caveat. I don't see an exception inside of these verses that tell me
you don't see an exception because you refuse to study.
This is from Doug. Yeah. Realistically, masks do not work. Yep, could be. Government has authority. They tell me to put it on. I have to do what I'm told. I feel as though it's a compromise of my faith to wear a mask. Well, now this is interesting, isn't it? Let's open this up from that perspective. Wait a second. Now we've introduced another subject here.
Now remember, with Todd Friel as a volunteerist, because faith is everything. You have to have faith. That's the thing that merits your justification. This is it. For him, any little waning of faith, oh, buddy, this puts your soul into jeopardy, because it is not about Christ now. Oh, it's about your faith. So let's go. So that's how you get to him. Let's see what he's got to say about this.
I feel like this is something that is causing my faith to be compromised. He writes, to me, wearing a mask says that my faith is not in God to keep me healthy and well. Wearing a mask says that I have faith in the mask to sustain me, and it takes over for God in that role. Okay, so here's what we've got. On the one hand, this is a feeling from Doug that if I put on a mask, I'm telling the world I'm trusting a mask and not God. On the other hand, my argument was you're telling the world I obey a government because God told me to, and I'm putting my trust in him. Well, so now how do you tip the scale? And I think it gets tipped for us. Submit to the governing authorities. And we're just going to let people have to interpret it the way that they see fit. But God,
there you go. And if you interpret it properly, then you submit to the authority, which is the people, not the government. When the government tells you to do ridiculous things. Now, I have heard the argument, well, the government tells you to, wear a seatbelt when you drive, so you have to wear a seatbelt when you drive. Driving is not a right, it's a privilege. You don't have to drive. I know many people that don't drive. In big cities, there's a lot of people that have never had their driver's license, have never driven, and don't care to. Because it doesn't matter to them. It's not a right. But everybody is being told, we're told here in Pennsylvania, as soon as you step onto your porch, you better have a mask on. No, that's not how this works. I'd love to see the law that says that. And believe me, I've read over our Secretary of State who, has issues himself. And I've read it over, and the laws that are being stated for the authority and the power are for individuals or animals that have been diagnosed with a virus or an issue that could be spread to the health community. Not just blanket. It's not for people that have not been shown to be ill. It is specifically for people who have been shown to be ill. And they're trying to work off of that. Go and read the documentation that they themselves put out. I'm surprised nobody reads it. I think that's the reason. Maybe I'm the only one that does. In my pastor's meeting that I had, I think I was the only one that read like the 4-page memo, and I was certainly the only one that went through all of the. I think there were only like 3 or 4 legal citations. Some of the statutes went back to the 1920s, to the plague then. Okay, but I went through and I read them, and there was nothing that gave the authority of mandating everybody wear everything. So our servants are not behaving properly. To let them run amok, to let them do whatever they want to do, is poor leadership on our part. That is the problem. That is problematic. Okay. So if you're going to be a bad leader, a bad governor, a bad, authority in which God has placed you, then yes, Todd, please sit down. The adults are talking. Learn, evaluate, then come join the conversation. But you refused to even look into the issue in the first place. Then you get called on the carpet here, and you're doubling down, and you're refusing to even look at it again. Saying, if I say something and the Christian community immediately comes at me with these strong responses like this, I have to look at it and say, hang on a second. If it's that big of an issue, maybe there's another side. What is that other side? I dig into it. I look at it. Okay. If you've been watching or listening to Divergent Theology and you see what I'm doing with justification by faith, I look at all of the different perspectives. I understand them from the different areas. I just went through the last episode. I just did 10 of them. I 10 different ways that we look at faith's relationship to justification, the way that people do. I don't hold to any of them. I looked at them. I evaluated. These are all reasonable. Here's what we do. Todd doesn't do that. Todd has one view. He looks at one view of one thing and refuses to understand the reasoning behind any other view because it has no merit for him anymore. It has nothing. This is his problem. Let's continue on with our video here.
Tips the scale for me by telling me, submit to your government. Do what you're told. This is from Christine. Are we to joyfully comply and obey government when they start handing out the mark of the beast? So that they can buy and sell and eat to live?
Now, Todd, as a big dispensationalist and he's big rapture guy, that's all these people, these futurist understanding of revelation and its literal fulfillment and all that stuff. Let's listen to his answer. Let's listen to his response here.
I don't know that this is that. I could it be, is it possible, Christine, that this is the government, deep state, that this is their plan to kind of move things toward because Antichrist is coming and could be. I don't know. But I don't think this is that. I don't think
So just out of curiosity, are you, as a Christian, when it comes to Revelation 13 and the mark of the beast, are you the one who is supposed to be able to understand what that is? Okay. When we go down here, let me see. Let me find it. No. Okay. Just really quick. Just real quick here. Make sure that my head's out of the way for this. Okay. Here's the mark of the beast that we have right here. Let's cause everyone great or small to obtain the mark on their right hand or forehead. Thus no one was allowed to buy or sell things unless he bore the mark of the beast, that is, his name or his number. This calls for what? Wisdom. This calls for wisdom. Let the one who has insight calculate the number of the beast. For his number of a man, his number is 666, or man wanting to be God. This calls for wisdom. Not very wise on Todd's part here. Not very wise at all. Somebody brought this up and said, hey, Todd, you are a mark of the beast type guy. You are someone that follows all this stuff. I'm going to shut a couple of these windows here. You do all this stuff, and yet you look at that and like you couldn't anticipate this question coming up. Like seriously, I've I used to go on Word FM in Pittsburgh all the time, and they would have me discuss subjects for like an hour on the radio. And when I did things on like purgatory, and I would discuss that, one of the things I did is I sat down and I thought about what questions would I have. And I anticipated, and I looked those up and I did that. And one of the questions that I knew was going to be coming was, where in the Bible do you find purgatory? As a Protestant, I don't. But I went to Roman Catholic sources. I read their sources, I read their books. I had that ready. And I was able, and people asked me, they said, we were listening, and someone asked you that question, and you were just able to rattle off scripture. How did you do that? And I said, I anticipated that question because I knew it was coming. Todd, how do you not anticipate that question? How do you not, with something like this, how do you not, I mean, I've been seeing these memes of, this is the start of the mark of the beast and everything. Some of this stuff is getting so prevalent. And my oldest one, he's going to be 15. He's watching more YouTube and he's getting more involved in this, and he's looking at Revelation. He was really upset the other day because he thought that like COVID was part of the end of times and everything like that. And we're actually going to be doing a study in Revelations, him and I, so that he can understand what the book is and what it means and what apocalyptic literature is, because these people that go off on these wild goose chases of, literalism, like wooden literalism of apocalyptic literature, cause problems in people who are not, who are very young in their faith and don't understand scripture as well as, people who are trained and should be discipling people, can really get them upset. And so therefore, Todd, you should have anticipated this question. This is poor planning and poor foresight on your part.
Ask is the mark of the beast. And so I think that we're just told, submit to the government. Just do what you're told. Could it be conditioning people? Maybe. Maybe not. I don't know. But my speculations, as good or accurate as they may or may not be, they don't matter. When I'm given a clear command, son, wash your brother's bike. You don't know what I'm up to, and it's really not your concern. Just do what you are told. This was sent from a number of people, actually. Nevertheless, what if the next mandate they give us is to line up for the ovens or FEMA camps? Oh, your children will go this way because we have other ideas for them, like August harvesting and sex slaves. Do we still obey our leaders? No, because this is not that.
Oh, but all your other analogies are. No. So he's asking, what if this is that? What if this is that? See, the premise that Todd has is that you submit to your government no matter what, because you are to obey them. How does he get out of that one? How does he get around that? Well, no, because, sorry, you have to default to Americanism to get out of that one. And what if they are actually doing that and separating them? You see what's coming out of the universities, Todd. You do enough open air evangelism, or have in the past, to know what people think, to know what they are. I've watched you expertly debate people on the street with postmodern epistemology. I've watched you take them apart. You know the mentality that's out there. You know the conditioning that's going on. Well, this is not that. No, that's a cop-out. That's a cop-out. That is a legitimate question, and you just cropped out of it. If you want to say no, give the reason why. And maybe coming up here, you're going to give the reason why. Let's see.
Being told to put on a mask, might it be conditioning? Yep. But just the same, if they're going to tell me to put my kid into an oven, I'm not going to obey that. Just like, who was it that was told to jump into an oven and actually obeyed? They didn't fight. The boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were put into the oven. But I don't have to surrender my child if there's nefarious intentions. My command from God is to protect me.
So, let's go back to the theme here, Nazi Todd, on Jewish people being put in ovens and the historical precedent of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Thank you for that. That was really cute. That was really nice. So suicide. If you were told, Todd, to commit suicide, well, the government's telling me to. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did it. And look, nothing happened to them. Therefore, the government tells me I should do it. Come on, Todd. Come on. Are you freaking kidding me here? You're just... This is getting so ridiculous.
My children, no matter who that is. So I don't think that this is actually that. Idea@wretched.org. I suspect you might be disagreeing with me. By the time they tell me I have to wear a burqa, it's too late to protest. This is from Marge. We are headed exactly in that direction if we don't let them know that we also have a brain and have reasoned that it's very unhealthy to wear a mask. I realize we're commanded by God to do as the government says because it's pleasing to God. He put them in place, and now you know there's going to be a conjunction here. But when they came up with unhealthy rules that are of no value, I think we have to act as Daniel acted, and he was told to bow down. See, he was commanded to sin. Putting on a mask isn't a command to sin. Now, if it's bad for your health, I believe that they've actually already made that exception, that if you have any sort of breathing issue, asthma.
Yeah, well, he never said that the whole mask thing was the sinful part. I mean, the cloth over your face is not sinful in any way. It is recognizing the authority. That is the sinful part. And he is saying that you not wanting to put a piece of cloth over your mask is sinning because the government tells you to. I'm saying that not doing it because you are the authority and your servant doesn't tell you to do that, that is in fact the sinful part, to tell Christians that they have to do that and they have to submit to their servants, that the authority must submit to their servants. I'm saying that that's the problem. Okay? So, again, he's talking about there's a conjunction here, but yeah, just like somebody saying, oh, if I have to tell them, send my kids to the boxcars and throw them in the ovens. And what Todd say? But, his little conjunction, but this is not that. And that's my only argument. This is a very weak Christian responding to this because he feels that he has to. And I mean weak Christian just in this area. In a lot of other areas, Todd Friel is fantastic and he's awesome. But this in particular, this is something that deserves to be criticized and needs to be criticized because he criticizes Christians for living inconsistently. That's his shtick. That's his spiel. That's what he does. Okay. It's all about, the puritanizing of America with Wretched Radio. All right. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but he's tying salvation into it and everything else. And he makes it a bigger issue, puts more importance on it than what it has. He has it in the wrong category. I'll just put it like that. And so, because of this, he is behaving the same way a weak Christian behaves on a topic that they don't like or understand. No research and just kind of talking.
You don't have to wear a mask in the places where they've mandated it, whatever that means. By the way, that's another response that many, many people had to my presentation on 1 Peter 2, submitting to the government even when we don't like it, because there's a joyful benefit in doing so, that the government is telling us to do something that could actually be physically harmful to some people. Right. That could be. But by them saying already you don't have to, well, they're demonstrating a little flexibility. But you say it's a mandate. They don't have the authority to do that. In fact, in Georgia, that's exactly what's going on. The mayor of Atlanta, Keisha Lance Bottoms, she's mandated masks are to be worn in Atlanta. Governor Brian Kemp said you can't enforce that because it's not a law. That's not the way it works. Okay, now where do you find yourself? I grant you, I'm not banging my fist on the table, but here it is. A mayor of my city says, I'm signing something that says wear a mask. She's the authority, and the governor says, well, you can't enforce that. And there's other constitutional attorneys who would say that it's got to go through the legislation. You can't be written a ticket. You can't be put in jail for a mandate. That's just not the way it works. Now, what does a Christian do? Let me just suggest this. The scale should tip more toward, rather than how do I get out of this? How do I obey God by obeying my government to bring him glory and potentially see souls saved? Different Christians are going to have a different response to that, but I'm simply encouraging a striving to be obedient even as I potentially don't like it. Discuss. This is Wretched Radio.
Does Todd wear shoulder pads? Do his suit jackets have shoulder pads in them? Just wondering, because he's got some broad shoulders. He's a big guy. But as we can see from this, this is the reason why I'm bringing up this whole mask thing, and we're talking about this on the Theology Pit, is because it's just bad use of the Bible. It's bad use of history. It's the way that Todd talks about people, the way that he is doing this stuff. And just out of curiosity here, this video that we just watched, okay, he has 366,000 subscribers, and this has been watched almost 30,000 times. 30,000 views. 30,000 people are taking what he is saying into account. 1,100 of them like it, 300 do not. Okay. His last one that he did, same amount of subscribers, but he has 56,000 views on that first one. 56,000. All right. 1.9 thousand. So yeah, almost 2,000 people gave it a thumbs up and liked it. And 728. That's a huge audience of influence, because all those people are talking to people. That means that out of those views, all right, the ones who give it the thumbs up strongly agree. They're the ones that are going to be using this as ammunition to go talk to people about it and are glad that he did the follow-up. All right, so that's 2,000 people almost that are going out there and advocating for this, that you wear a mask, and using Todd's arguments, okay? 700 are saying no, and they're strongly advocating against it, okay? But you have 56,000 people, or if you take those numbers out, then you got about 54,000 people that are watching it, probably more favoring what he's saying. So in the first video, here's something that's very telling. All right, this is something that's extremely telling when you see this. This is somebody right here who does not want to engage with other Christians. Right here. Comments have been turned off. What about the other one? Do we have the comments are turned off? That right there tells you where Todd's mindset is and why he does not like representative forms of government, why he does not like the American system, why he thinks that we should be low-key a socialist communist country with top-down authority and not we the people having authority. He does not want to know what other people think. He does not want people engaging in conversation. And you know what? Because we don't know how to do civil discourse, it can get nasty. And you know what? It should get nasty, because that's real. That's life. Okay? On my channel, people, if they've been in the comments fighting with other and getting nasty, I don't censor them. No, go. Do it. Because that shows the extremes. When you're extreme on either side screaming at each other, you're allowing people that may have thought that way to say, you know what, I'm going to back off a little bit because I don't want to be like that guy. I don't want to look like that. And there's more civility out there than what we think, and we can discuss these things. But this is a tell right here. This is a big tell. Todd does not want any type of correction, and he does not want anything that is opposed to his message to be associated with his message, even though he's on a public forum. Todd is the type of person who, if he was in charge of Google, if he was, which owns YouTube, if he was in charge of Twitter or Facebook, he would be using the same draconian censorship things that they do, just for his views only. And that's what he would use it for. And he would probably, so to go onto a public forum like this, Todd, and to not engage or allow the public to engage in it, it's disingenuous. On this topic, no, get rid of, we're going to ignore. It probably would be fair of me to look at maybe some of his other videos, because he might do this on all of his videos. I don't know. Maybe that's his practice, that he does not want to hear from anybody at all. Yeah, it seems that he does. It seems like this is the modus operandi, that you are not allowed to comment ever on his videos. He does not want to hear from people. He does not want people engaging in discussing. Nope. I'm going back a while here, a little while. That's just how he is. He doesn't do that, and that's fine. If you want to be like that, that's great. Go ahead. I'm not that way. I'm strong enough in my convictions that it doesn't bother me when people disagree. This is not a life or death issue for me, as it is for Todd Friel. So everyone, I want to thank you for listening to the Theology Pit. I want to thank you for, if you're watching this, you're a Patreon subscriber, thank you so very, very much. There's going to be a lot more of these coming up. You're going to get on Patreon, you're going to get the full hour and 45 minute thing, hour and 50 minute, whatever this turns out to be, that you can watch through. On the podcast, it's going to be broken up, but you know what? I got a couple things lined up, some recordings for this next week coming up that should prove to be really, really interesting. So you're going to want to be a Patreon member for those, especially dealing with some stuff with looking at history of Pentecostalism. We're going to be doing some denominational stuff, and I have it lined up in a couple weeks for doing an interview with a friend of mine from Kenya, and then I have another one I have to nail down the date for somebody from Nigeria, and he is an Anglican priest in Nigeria who works at the cathedral, and we're going to be talking about that. That's going to be really interesting. So you're definitely going to want to be a Patreon person for that, but also, subscribe to the YouTube and the podcast. Now it is definitely time to close down the pit. Thank you. And I'll just do the title in as I did the title out.
You've fallen into the Theology Pit.
You've fallen in the Theology Pit.